Hey people, so we've got the Lenovo ThinkPad Yoga L13. This is an AMD version. Just to say, there's no performance stuff. That's going to take us about a week to do the actual review. Today is just the unboxing. If you've seen too many of this, then obviously feel free to skip this part. Okay, so we'll get to it. Before we start, please like and subscribe so we can do more of this content. As you can see, it's completely sealed. It's just not as satisfying as before, but I guess we'll do. You can see some wrinkles around the seal. So we've received this box from Lenovo. It's paid for with our own money, so it's not a review unit. This is a retail unit. The experience is probably likely to be similar to what you get anyway. It just arrived without any outer box in a mailer bag. We got rid of the mailer bag now. So on the inside you have quite a reassuring layer of foam. So if it's dropped in transit, it's a little bit less likely to be damaged. So on the inside you have the usual documentation. The charger. We didn't actually get any configurable option. This was ready to ship model, so I'm curious to see if they sent us a 45 or 65. Oh, they sent us a 65 watt charger, the old style one, so it's a little bit heavier than a really slim one. What's quite interesting is for the longest time, Lenovo just didn't let you buy any yoga machines with AMD processors. So this is probably the closest that they're willing to let you have the performance, but not want to cannibalize their own sales of the Intel-based X1 units. Actually, on the second thought, probably not the best idea to try that unboxing. So we've got a pair of scissors. It's sufficiently quiffable, I hope. So as you can see, it's sealed. And now it's no longer sealed. We'll just take it out. Wow. It's really satisfying, the feel. It's about 1.38 kilos, but it just feels really nice. It feels very robust. It doesn't give you any of the flimsiness of a more budget range business machine. So we're going to try to weigh it, see how much it weighs. So 1.38 is the spec. So it's 1.443 in reality. So it's a little bit heavier, not too much. Depending on what specification you go with, I think it varies the weight of the laptop a little bit. So let's see the actual charger. I reckon this is probably 320, 360 grams. So if you add the two together, it comes just under 2 kilos. So yeah, 1.8 kilos for both the charger and laptop. So a little bit more hollow at the center. Yeah, very rigid, very nice. And on the base cover, I'm actually quite impressed by the quality. This is without opening it. So once we get it twisted open, this is the appeal of why you should have a yoga. It's just really nice, and for the people who want to take notes with the stylus, it's just quite nice. But what I'll probably say is you can see where the design is a lot more utilitarian. So I don't know how much you can see from here, but even with the lid closed, this is the first time I'm looking at it, there's still this gap on the side. So it's a little bit more utilitarian. And when it's locked to the back, it's not always fully, it has a little give. So yeah, so that's where you get good enough quality for work, but its design is probably not as meticulous as you expect. But alas, on the higher end X1 Yoga 6, you don't really get the AMD option. So this is closest to what you can get. And all in all, feeling really good. Yeah, so just confirm. So when I press on the keyboard and when I'm in the tablet mode, it doesn't actually do anything. So I'm pressing onto the Windows key. As you can see, there's nothing actually that's happening. So it locks the keyboard, quite nice. On the inside, you have the privacy shutter. That's quite nice. And the screen, let's see. I think with the yogas, they usually apply a layer of film. I don't know if they do it anymore, but we'll know later. Yeah, so I think really easily it leaves a fingerprint marks on the screen. I probably should go wash my hands. Yeah, the marks, as you can expect on touchscreen laptop, it's definitely there. It's a Yoga. It's in a build that you're going to be very familiar with. I think Yoga, if you think back, it was really popular as far as back as 2016. So it's a really familiar chassis. It's nothing extravagant on this one, just really utilitarian. I think I'm just happy that there is a webcam shutter. I think that's quite reassuring. Bezel, it's not massive, it's just there, you can see it. Quite a bit more noticeable than something like XPS, I reckon. Oh, not really sure I like that design, because I think when you hold it like this, you don't have as much grip onto the lid. So yes, opening the lid is quite easy, but sometimes it just slips a little bit. So your finger, it has to grab hold of the base quite carefully when you open, because otherwise it might slip off your hand. Generally, first impression is quite good. What was that noise just now? Yeah, this bit is a little hollow, but I think that's to be expected. Let's look at the ports. USB-A, one on each side, quite nice. HDMI port and micro SD card. Lock slot. It's not exactly Christmas, as they say. 2 USB Type-C ports and network adapter port. So no Ethernet and no SIM tray. The thing to remember about the L series is that it's a more intra-range ThinkPad. So you're not expecting all the 4K options. So it's you either have the TN panel or you have the IPS 300 nits or the 250 nits. So it's not the most extravagant in terms of the options. So we've got the Ryzen 7 model here. There's also the Ryzen 5. So I think just make sure that on this model, the RAM is soldered on. So when you order it, make sure you get the 16 gig version if you can, because the 8 gig, about maybe 2 gig of that is going to be used by integrated graphics. So you'll be left with 6 gig and you're no longer able to upgrade. I mean, with a business laptop and a Ryzen 5000 series, that's just a little bit odd. So I'm not really sure why that 8 gig spec exists. But I mean, some people in the office probably doesn't really need much RAM. They just want something really fast. Like, guess that's rational. So we're plugging it in for the first time to switch it on, and as you can see, backlit keyboard. Let's get a sense of the hinge. I'm not sure how much you can see, so if we have the laptop definitely on the surface. This desk quality is not great, but you know, you can definitely see the laptop wobbling when you move the display. Wobbles a little bit more than we probably like, but it's this is the closest you can get to a Yoga with Ryzen 5000, so that's the price you pay. If you think of the Yoga line, regardless whether it's Intel or not, it's never been the most upgradable laptops. So traditionally, I think RAM on these machines has not been upgradable for a while at least. So you're topped out at 16 gigabyte. So your maximum is 16 gig. So that's a thing to keep in mind when you do consider between either a Yoga or Intel-based model. I think with some of the Intel-based model, you can go up to 32 gig. And also with some of the ThinkPads, the T-series with the AMD processor, you can get a touchscreen. But its touchscreen is just not going to be anywhere nearly as nice to touch. Because those T-series, usually the screen is going to be a soft touch. So there's no glass protection. Whereas on this one, the surface, there's a glass. So unless you drop it or press it really hard or damage it, this is a lot more smooth to use than the soft touch. I mean, personally, when I see a soft touch display, I'm really hesitant to touch it because you don't know if you're going to leave a bright mark on it. So out of curiosity, so what we can see is the RAM, it's dual channel, even though it's not upgradable. So that's quite nice. So for Ryzen, you really want dual channel. So 3200 MHz RAM, 16 gig. So that's nice. I hope that the 8 gig option is also dual channel, but I don't really know. As you can see, 8 cores and 16 thread. It's just, it looks stunning. We've got 512 SSD, Lenovo multi-sources SSD, so your performance could be a little bit over the place. I imagine there's no PCIe 4 speed in this generation. So looking at the network here, we get the Realtek Wi-Fi. So if you use Linux quite a lot, there's some user comments that they really prefer the Intel Wi-Fi. So I suppose it's probably one of those things, take off the base cover, see if you can swap it out. I think ONO, one thing I picked up is ONO is really quiet so far. I mean, if this were a older laptop, I would probably be hearing the fans ramping up. I mean, obviously we're not loading Windows Update because we're not connected to internet yet, but It's really quiet. I think that's what probably you expect these days from AMD laptop. The comment about fans being on either side is it could get in the way of you using the mouse, whereas on here you can see it's at the back. But just now, the base, I feel as if it's lacking a bit grip, so I almost felt like I was dropping it. So on the base cover, it's not the grippy material. And so basically get a really good laptop bag or case and just take care when you use it, because the surface is, it doesn't attract as much fingerprint, I reckon, as some of the models, but it's also quite slippery, so you don't want to do that too often. Okay, so yeah, so even though first impression really good, you use it in portrait mode. I'm not really sure why you want to do this as much with Windows 10. Maybe Windows 11 is going to be better. So 16:9 aspect ratio, so it's not going to be something that is really wide, but I think this is a format you'll be used to with Yogas. And if you try the Intel model, you probably either love it or you probably don't mind a little bit more power by going with AMD. And one of the concerns with the sort of really narrow bezel, you don't want to be holding it like this too much. You know it's really well built because the hinge feels quite solid, but at the same time, I feel just a little bit concerned when you're holding it like this. Maybe I'll leave some pressure mark or something. So generally, comments okay. One tip, please open and close carefully and grip the base of the unit properly before you open and close the unit. Otherwise, it's really slippery. The trackpad feels a lot more like the last generation. So 1.5mm keyboard travel. It's not quite as generous as the 1.8 you get on the T14 Gen 2. The speaker internally seems to give you a quite good studio effect wherever the speakers are. I'm curious. So there's the usual Dolby software, and as soon as you enable it, it makes the speaker noticeably more immersive, which is quite nice. We've probably taken too much time, so just going to wrap this up. Looks really decent. I think we'll go have a play. Going to try to see if we can do a little bit more real world usage, whatever that means. I think that's one of the comments we got for the last one. A little bit too synthetic focus, maybe last review. If you're thinking of buying this laptop, it's just a friendly tip. It seems to be a global shortage out there. I think it might be the spec you really want is not going to be exactly available in that precise combination. So it might be just working out what the next spec that works for you is. So for instance, we bought this earlier this week with the 300 nits screen. It was ready to ship model, but now when we look at the Lenovo website, it's only 250 nits that's available. So it means that they've already moved the 300 nits units as far as availability goes. Ryzen 7 might be the next one to go, who knows. Generally with Lenovo, it seems the Ryzen 5 availability is a little bit better in those circumstances. So we're just going to wrap it back up and hand it over to the colleagues for review.